Hey, greetings and welcome to the Mount Rushmore podcast. My name is Jeff. Richard Leonard Bernstein is conducting down there. My name is Jeff. I'm joined as always by my good buddies Richard.
Hello.
And Michael.
Hello. Happy New Year too.
Happy New Year.
Pull back the curtains a little bit.
Yeah. Richard and Michael like to debate and deliberate the most ubiquitous aspects of how many topics, how many shows have we done?
375, something like that.
375. Yeah. And
we're in that range.
We finally got around to the topic everybody has been waiting for us to talk about, and that's the Mount Rushmore of Klutzes.
It's literally, if you go on our social media, it's just been flooded over the years.
Why do you gotta do klutzes?
Klutzgate.
Yeah. We've held off, and eventually the public pressure was like a dam, and it finally broke.
We did stumblebum.
Yeah,
we did.
Yeah. We keep meaning to do it, but we keep dropping the ball. It's just like over and over. Well, I don't
know. So it's been a topic we've been evading and kind of working around, but we finally got to it. And whose choice was it?
This was mine. This is a Michael Winfield joint. There's two reasons. One, I feel like I am a tremendous klutz myself. I've always never felt really super like confident. I later realized that I just have like poor peripheral vision. So like I bump into walls because I just can't see anything like over here. Like this is all blank to me. So I'm always turning around, like walking into like door frames, just things, and I'm just like cursing myself for being clumsy or a klutz. And then but this topic came about because of one of my choices, and we'll get into that. But basically a book came up for Christmas, and within that book was a character who was particularly clumsy or klutz. I don't know if there's a big difference between, like, you wouldn't call someone a clumsy, right?
Yeah.
It's not a noun.
Yeah.
It's a adverb? But a klutz is like the noun version of someone who is clumsy.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't want to say like Mount Rushmore being clumsy, but klutzes is just, and it's just such a good, you klutz. I don't know if it's German. Yeah. I don't know where it comes from. I assume it's, there was just like a really horrific World War I German battle commander, like Edvard Klutz, that just like drove tanks the wrong way or horses off a cliff or something. I don't know. He wore his spiked Bavarian helmet upside down or something. That's what I imagine.
I love it. I was just searching what is another word for klutz, and it's a lot of it doesn't imply that the person may have an average intelligence, yet is uncoordinated and mishap, prone. All the other euphemisms are clod, idiot, lame brain, ignoramus, half-wit, dummy, numbskull. Like I feel like klutz, like Albert Einstein could have been a klutz, right?
He probably was.
Yeah.
Yeah, he definitely fell into
theory
of relativity.
Yeah.
He was actually trying to write like E = MC like squared, but fell off the ladder and wrote a 3, or tried to write a 3 and just
Yeah. I do also believe I'm always surprised by the choices you gentlemen select, and sometimes you go in directions that I did not expect. But for me, is there a tragic klutz? Is there anything in that? Because I always think of what people do with comedy is analyze it to death, and it's not funny anymore. But it seems like the comedy equals tragedy plus time. There's another formula Einstein could have developed, but he did E = MC squared. I love his brother Shecky Einstein did comedy equals tragedy plus time. The Shecky Sheldon Einstein came up with that. But the idea that a klutz is funny to observe is something that I kind of embrace. But who knows? There could be some tragic klutzes out there. All right. Wait. So Michael came up with it?
Yes,
Richard.
I will start off.
Okay.
And I was thrown off by doing the research on this because I was looking for Shakespearean klutzes.
Oh.
And it turns out that remember the klutz books that you'd get as a kid?
Oh,
You
they're like for
guys
dummy,
have
like they're
these?
for dummies
Yeah,
books?
they were kind of like
Oh,
the for dummies ones, but
okay.
they're like how to do things,
Oh,
like how
wow.
to juggle. They were actually published by a company called Shakespeare and Company.
Wow.
So that really screwed up my research on this. So instead of going with
Oh, yeah.
anything really clever, I went with a really obvious choice for my first choice, and that was Jerry Lewis.
Oh,
Oh,
fun.
good
Okay.
one.
Okay.
Someone who made a career out of being, I think, maybe a little bit more on the doofus category,
Yeah.
the schmeal, if you
Yeah.
will, but certainly had the physical, over the top sort of
Mhm.
stumblebum nature, the lack of coordination in a lot
Yeah.
of his movies. Um, Even in the serious ones, like The Day the Clown Cried, where he's
Have you
attempting to be serious.
has
Where
anyone have you seen this film?
no, I
It
have
looks
not.
like
I,
very
I, I am
verboten.
not one of. I'm not Harry Shearer. I'm not
Yeah.
one of the 30 people
Yeah.
who has seen The Day the Clown Cried,
Yeah.
but I have read the synopses of it.
Mhm.
And I know at the beginning of the movie, he's working as a clown and he gets fired because he clumsily causes an accident at the circus.
Yeah.
And then he goes out and gets drunk because he gets fired and winds up getting caught making fun of Adolf Hitler drunkenly. And that's how he gets thrown in the concentration camp.
Oh.
So even in a movie where Jerry Lewis is attempting to make a serious, Holocaust movie,
Mhm.
his character is still a klutz.
Yeah.
So it's just there's something about that physical nature of Jerry Lewis that he can't get away from,
Yeah.
no matter what he's working on. And of course, in some of the movies, he'll have an alter ego, the very suave and sophisticated
Mhm.
ladies' man to kind of play
Buddy
off of
Love.
maybe the Buddy Love character
Mm.
exactly, and to kind of contrast with the bumbling klutz that he usually plays.
Yeah. I think that also reveals when he does, uh, do those dual roles, reveals that the klutz, one who portrays the klutz is often very physically graceful and athletic, and
Sure.
they need to be in order to accomplish that without injury, I think.
Yeah, no, I mean it's one of the dichotomies, isn't it? And then I
Mhm.
don't want to get too much into the dissecting comedy, but yeah, I mean, in order to be a good physical comedian, you need to be in control of your body.
Mhm. Yeah.
Otherwise, you're gonna wind up breaking yourself
Yeah.
attempting to do it. And
Yeah.
we'll get into that in a little bit. But
Okay. Yeah,
yeah,
what's interesting is, one aspect of the klutz and its appeal is, the nonverbal, communication aspect, which makes them globally, uh, acceptable, so they
sure,
translate. Yeah.
sure. That's
What
why so many, and I don't know if I don't want to step on any of Michael's choice's toes, but someone like a Mr. Bean
Yeah.
is a universally beloved character. Where I think Michael and I would agree Blackadder is the best Rowan Atkinson character,
Mhm.
but that's not something that has universal appeal because that's a very language based
Ah,
character, and
yeah.
Blackadder is very literate kind of comedy.
Mhm.
Versus Mr. Bean is just him stomping around and
Yeah.
and falling down a lot.
Yeah.
And that's something that translates no matter what language you speak.
Mhm, mhm.
Good point.
Okay, Winfield, what's your first one?
Well, I was going to talk about the inspiration for this choice in my first pick, but all this talk about like body comedy will lead me to another one, which is Bill Irwin,
Oh, yeah.
comedian,
Wow.
mime, clown, as the character. I could say just Bill Irwin, full stop, but I'll nail it down to his Sesame Street character of Mr. Noodle,
Yeah.
where
Mhm.
I don't know if
Oh,
it's
Mr. Noodle!
I think it's on like a very good Elmo, on like an Elmo's World sort of thing. But I think he's been in like just a ton of of Sesame Street just in general. But I love the comedy stylings of Bill Irwin. Um, I remember I think probably first seeing him playing Ham Gravy in Popeye,
Oh,
where
yeah.
he's just walking. He's
Sure.
like walking around Sweet Haven, like stumbling and trying to pick up his hat that he keeps kicking as he's trying to pick it up. And like you said, I don't think he doesn't say a single word in the movie, or maybe he says one or two things, but just his physicality to not be able to pick up his hat is just diabolically hilarious. This person is so uncoordinated that the simplest action is so difficult. But when he translates as Mr. Noodle, he plays this other type of kind of klutzy character who just doesn't know how to do like the simple things. And I was reading a little bit about it. He's just got this great like straight face, kind of like a
Like a Buster Keaton kind of guy, or
yeah, or like
stone face. Yeah,
Oliver Hardy, not
yeah.
Stan
Dead,
Laurel.
a good deadpan. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was reading a little bit about the Mr. Noodle character and how he just doesn't know how to do things, but he gives all this silence within his performance so that kids can like yell at the screen. You know, he does these things like he doesn't know how to put on a hat. Speaking of hats, or he doesn't know how to eat a hamburger, or like all the things that are just these klutzy, dumb things. He's not stupid. He just like, where the character I don't think is portrayed as stupid. He just like falls down, or the wind's blowing and he can't move through it. And it's like, but it's all physical. Just that kind of speaks to what Richard said about his first choice is like the physicality of someone falling down or not being able to do something is just so delightful for a child. And I think a lot of my picks very childish in nature, but I think that is this, like you said with Blackadder and Rowan Atkinson, that character speaks to someone who's 5 years old, but then you, as a grown up, you can be like, oh, I see what he's doing. Oh, it's so clever. So clever. But I love Bill Irwin just in terms of how he is as like a kind of a mime and a clown. I think he's just delightful.
Yeah, do you think young people sympathize because they are still learning all the things that adults do and falling short of their objectives sometimes?
I think. Go ahead.
I would say I think it's because kids identify themselves in a klutz because they're still growing and are physically awkward and gangly and have trouble with their coordination and are knocking shit over all the time and getting in trouble for it. So that it's like, look, there's someone who's like me.
Yeah.
I think there's also this great delight in an adult not being able to do something that a kid can do.
Yeah.
And that an adult who's a klutz, an adult that's falling down. This person's supposed to drive a car. They don't even know how to turn the key in the engine, or they don't know how to like open the door, and they're climbing through the window. What are they doing? I'm 5. I know the idea of it. So
yeah. Oh, well, it's funny. Like Irwin, as a kind of Irwin fan, didn't he won a Tony Award for best original script or best script for a play that had no words in it. It was just physical.
Wouldn't be surprising. I mean, he was also did like the voice and all like the body acting for like the robot in Interstellar, that weird like clunky.
Oh wow.
He was physically on set as the robot. I don't know if he was like behind it in like a
puppeteer,
in like some sort of puppeteer sort of thing, or if it was just like all white balls and shit. But yeah, he was the physicality for like, oh, can you play a rectangle that can barely move? Yes, I know exactly.
I'm on it.
I'm on it.
That's super cool. Yeah, I was just thinking about him the other, because I looked at his IMDb and he kind of graduated to speaking roles where he's playing people who have dialogue and stuff like that. All right, Richard, what's your second?
All right, my second choice is Sport Goofy.
Oh wow,
Goofy's also on my list. Yeah.
Oh good. Wow. Okay.
I went specifically with Sport Goofy, but I think any Goofy would be just fine in this choice.
Yeah.
I loved the Sport Goofy cartoons when I was a kid. The series of cartoons where it would be a narrator talking about a popular sport, and there would be one or multiple Goofies sometimes if it was a team sport, attempting to show you how the sport is played and usually doing it very poorly. And Goofy is just this wonderfully realized animation character. It's just all long limbs and like derp, derp. I mean, it's the physical manifestation of derp, derp, derp. And it's just I mean, he's an everyman, but at the same time, he's not really a man. Not
Yeah.
exactly. Still, the great debate on what is Goofy at this point. Is he a dog? We're not. I don't want to. I don't want to open that can of worms. That's a
Yeah.
topic for a different episode.
Pluto's a dog.
Pluto is definitely a dog. We
Yeah.
know this. Goofy? Well, I don't know.
I don't know.
But what he is, like I said, is just is perfectly drawn for like pratfalls.
Mhm.
And
Well, he also he has like that kind of that lean body that talked about like Bill Irwin, where like his neck can suddenly be 3 feet long and can get tangled within his skis or whatever.
yeah,
He literally ties himself into knots trying to do uh ski down a mountain or dribble a basketball or
Yeah.
anything.
right.
It's like his body is rubber band man enough to take on all those things and to get caught up in himself.
Yeah. Why did you choose him, Michael?
Because I remember I like him because he is so earnest in what he's trying to do. He's never trying to harm someone. He never gets mad, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
You have these three characters, or the three main like Disney characters. And like when Felix was real little, we watched a lot of like the Disney shorts. So I'd seen like
Right.
the Disney the long trailer, not the long trailer. That's Desi Arnaz and Lucille Ball, but like the trailer where like the three of them are going on vacation and Goofy is, and like Donald is just like this proverbial like ticking time bomb. Everything makes him
Ball of
mad.
hate. Yeah.
Mickey Mouse is just kind of sweet and just kind of there and just trying to get along with everybody, and Goofy is trying to be helpful and can never be helped. Like he sets everything, everything falls apart because of his actions, but he's a good guy, but he just doesn't he gets in his own way. He's you know you think about even his later like kind of movie appearances, like with like a Goofy movie or
Mhm.
I never watched Goof Troop, but he's just single dad trying to get along, trying to do things for his son, and he can't get it right. And like I don't know, I think he's admirable that he's always trying in spite of himself. It's always in spite of himself.
Yeah, for sure. I think he's also chivalric in his romantic intentions, where Donald just feels like he's just pervy and just creeping out the room.
That's because he's
Okay,
not wearing pants, right?
that's right. Well, he he shows up bottomless. You can't go that very far from that. Your
Yeah,
intentions are
what's
known.
going on with Goofy? He is always fully dressed. I'm looking at a picture right now. He's got the turtleneck, he's got the vest, the shoes with a hole in it, and his pants. All these other guys are running around half naked.
My spouse is an employee of a major entertainment corporation, and the persons who play the character that we're speaking of, she's she knows them, and so she'll go to the parks and she'll be able to recognize the different behaviors based on the person who she knows outside of the costume. And
Mm,
it's funny. It's funny because I just think of him as just kind of this ubiquitous. He just always seems the same when I see the walk around characters. But she'll say,
Right.
"No, that's so and so," and the person more of a dance. Their physicality, the physical dial, like physical language that they speak might be more based on actual background in dance. Like the person's a professional ballet dancer or something like that. So it's funny to see the different goofies. So it's a new year. It's a new you. You are a podcast supporter and you're also a YouTube watcher. And we appreciate you doing that. But you could take it to the next level by becoming a topic contributor to the Mount Rushmore podcast. You could even become a special guest on the Mount Rushmore podcast. And that involves simply commenting on one of our posts, reaching out to us on any of the social platforms we're on. Just Google Mount Rushmore podcast, and we're usually about the fourth one down after some other podcasts that have come and gone that talked about Brett Favre or something more popular than what we talk about. But you could suggest a topic and then be a guest on the podcast and then put that on your LinkedIn and then you get a promotion.
That sounded a lot like it was starting off. You were heading down pledge drive territory when
That
you started
was.
promo that
Yeah.
read, by the
For
way.
$9.99 a month, you can get the 3 tenors CD and the
Yeah,
tote bag. Yeah.
and the 3 tenors are me, you, and Michael.
I
Nobody
don't want to
wants
give
to hear
away.
that.
I don't want to give away the one tote bag that I have, though. I need it for toting things. It's not a Rushmore branded tote bag. It's just
I
a tote
always
bag
love that
Trader
that can
Joe's
fit like
tote bag, yeah.
that can fit like a quart of milk. I mean, come on.
PBS and NPR people sound so smart until that one time until a pledge drive comes around. Then they sound like crack whores. It's like, come on, baby, just give me $1. Come on, just give me that $1. Apologies to crack whores who are listening or watching.
Yeah, not to
Yeah.
be offensive to crack horse.
Yeah.
Hey, everybody's got to listen to a podcast.
Yep. And right. Yeah. Okay. So we're back, and now Richard Manfredi. No, it's Michael Winfield. That's right, because we had the goofy double up. Michael Winfield's going to let us know his third.
The goofy double up, that's like the worst sex maneuver in the world. Oh, imagine Goofy involved.
Nobody
in, like,
enjoys it.
No.
All I can say
Okay.
is harsh.
My third choice now, which got pushed down from my number one choice, is the inspiration for all of this, and it is Mr. Fumble from the Richard Scarry
Oh.
series of books. He's kind of best known for his Busy World books, which feature like Huckle Cat and Lowly Worm and Hilda Hippo. And Mr. Fumble is a pig. And he is kind of like Goofy in a way. He is always just trying to help people out. But I guess also kind of like Ham Gravy in Popeye. He's always losing his hat. And he's always just like causing trouble. He's driving his car into things. He's driving his car into wet cement. He's trying to help people by carrying things. And the reason why this topic is being discussed today is because every year Felix has these, we bring up these big bins of Christmas stuff beginning of December. And he has all these Christmas books that come out. And he has one of his is The Night Before Christmas, which is just a wonderful book about how Mr. Fumble gets into a lot of trouble and he's trying to help people. And then nobody wants his help. And he's like, I know who I can help. And he takes off to the North Pole and he tries to help Santa and he fucks things up in the North Pole and Santa gets stuck in his chimney and he has to become Santa Frumble. And he's just this wonderful klutzy character that can never do anything right until, the very end where he kind of does something right. Mostly it's knocking things down and just doing klutzy things. But in all of his appearances, he's just this character where it's like, oh, Mr. Frumble, what are you doing? He's flying in the plane upside down. Like Felix will be reading it, and Ben is like, oh, Mr. Frumble, what? The best thing about Richard Scarry books is that whenever something bad is happening or something unexpected, every character has the same expression, which is their arms shooting out and their legs shooting out, and they're just mouth open wide. You'd have to look at us on our YouTube video for that, but they all look the same. They all look so like exasperated and shocked.
Full body astonishment.
Yeah, it's he's wonderful. Richard Scarry's a wonderful illustrator and storyteller. But Mr. Frumble, yeah, man, he's my main klutz.
Mm-hmm. What you brought up is a component of, I think, episodic entertainment. I think this is in other things too, but where the protagonist has to screw things up for most of the show. And then at the end, they get not what they intended. Like Goofy wants to be maybe a sports star or something like that. And he falls short of it, but he does get a hug from his, kid or something like that. So I think often the aspirations or even arrogance of the character makes the klutzy stuff even more fun, makes their failure even more funny. And then for them to, at the end of it, Laurel and Hardy have each other, or they have, maybe a wink from the flower girl in the corner that, they didn't move the piano up the flight of stairs, but they do have friendship or something like that. So the characters they don't get what they want, but they get what they need at the end, to quote Mick Jagger, I guess. Yeah. Okay, then Richard, your third.
My third is the character of Gerald Ford,
Oh yeah.
not
Oh,
the
sure.
actual president
Uh,
himself, but the character as portrayed by Chevy Chase on Saturday Night
oh,
Live.
fun.
Because, I mean, Gerald Ford had one incident where he slipped coming down or going up, I can't remember, but on the steps of Air Force One and like slipped and like hit his head or something like that. And that's not what people remember. That's not how people remember him by. It's just this one incident. They remember that there was somehow this series of bumbling incidents with Gerald Ford, that he was a bumbler.
Mhm.
And that's because Chevy Chase, when doing his impression of Gerald Ford on Saturday Night Live, decided not to do anything remotely close to an impression of Gerald Ford and just portray him as a series of pratfalls waiting to happen. And that's what stuck with people, which is ironic because Gerald Ford might have been our most athletic president. He was an All-American football player at the University of Michigan and got drafted by the Green Bay Packers. And if he wouldn't have gone into politics, he probably would have been a football player. So the irony that someone who is this physically coordinated and gifted at a sport would then be remembered for supposed klutziness is pretty ironic. And you mentioned, Jeff, like the physical nature of portraying a klutz. And I think I said something about how if you don't do it right, you're going to hurt yourself.
Mhm.
Well, you look no further than Chevy Chase and his long-standing history of back problems and pain pills
Mhm.
related to said back problems. So, kids, if you're going to be a physical comedian, learn how to do it correctly. I don't know how many people I know who have hurt themselves doing a pratfall. So just don't do it unless you have to. And if you're going to do it, learn how to do it right. Don't
What's
think,
great?
oh, I can just throw my body around. I have a problem with my kid right now who's 16 and does a lot of physical comedy type stuff for their acting that they do, and they're having to take the time to learn how to do it right because their teachers are like, look, we don't want to see you injure yourself.
Yeah.
I hurt my back, I hurt my knee, I did this to myself whenever I was doing comedy. So, you need to learn how to do it right.
Yeah, don't set up the backyard wrestling ring uh and jump off of the chicken shed.
Yeah.
Chicken, go take a class on how to take a bump or whatever.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
This is such an interesting choice because it makes just me think of like he's like one of the most well-known impressions that's also like the worst impression.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like it could be anybody could have slipped on a stairs and he would have put the same, like it's just a physical effort, a physical comment on something that is so ridiculous that is like that he made no additional effort to look like him,
Right.
right? To sound like Gerald Ford. Not that I know exactly what Gerald Ford sounds like, but like I know what he looks like. He looks like a thumb,
Mhm.
and like, but he didn't. There was a weird thing. I think there was just like, it's whatever. Who gives a
Yeah.
shit?
Yeah, I mean, you look at Saturday
Very
Night Live
strange.
now.
Yeah.
And whenever it's an impression, somebody's going to be spending hours in the makeup table to
Mhm.
try and look as much like that character as possible. You think of someone like Daryl Hammond, spending years trying to nail down sort of the
The voice and
subtle
Mhm.
nuances of a character versus the early years of Saturday Night Live with, like you said, with Chevy Chase, basically just taking one attribute that people know about that character and exaggerating it to an extreme level, and that's good enough. That's good enough to be an impression.
Do you think SNL would have had any sort of stay in popular culture if it had just went off the air in like 1980? Like, do you
Hmm.
think people would
Huh.
like because it got kind of revived, or it kind of rebranded when Lorne Michaels left. And I wonder, like, okay, it's a sketch comedy show. There have been so many other variety and sketch shows that were on TV throughout this, kind of late 60s and into the 70s. You put a Cher comedy special out, or Cher, the
Yeah.
Sunny and Cher
Carol
show,
Burnett. Carol
Carol
Burnett.
Burnett, all these people, all these stars and comedians had comedy and acting and dancing and songs and dancers and all this stuff on there. And SNL was not too far off from that. They had a musical thing. Like, and if it just kind of like, if it just ended in 1980 and that 5 years of that cast, I don't know. It's has such a strange longevity. And I think people would be like, oh, you mean that stupid show where that guy did the worst impression I've ever seen of a president at the time? Oh, okay.
I think if it had ended in 1980 after the original cast left, I think it still would have been culturally relevant for two reasons. One, because it was seen as the anti-establishment version
Mm.
of a variety show, and that was part of the new comedy that was coming up in the mid to late 70s. Your Richard Pryors, George Carlin's, people like that.
Mhm.
And I think secondly, just because of the sheer success that the cast had, that original cast had going into the 80s. I mean, Chevy Chase was a big actor in the 80s. Bill Murray has been a big actor since the 80s. Dan Aykroyd was in big movies. The cast had legs. So I think that's the other thing that would have kept it relevant.
That's an interesting point. Yeah, their work outside of the show. I think the last few years, Belushi was on like 2 shows a year or something like that. So yeah,
Yeah.
I think he diminished. I would say that I think Chevy, the impression was a statement of revolution, and that these persons weren't gonna do things the way that they'd been done before.
Right.
Yeah. But I still think physical comedy is a statement of tradition. Like,
Yes.
that's physical. Really, you guys are that hip that you're doing this shtick, when
You're
Milton
doing
Berle came.
vaudeville fall down.
Yeah, yeah. Are you guys really that cool? Because I don't even know that they do that on Monty Python. They do physical stuff, but I don't know that they do pratfalls and whatnot. But
Yeah, the closest you would get would be like the silly walk or something like that.
yeah,
But
yeah, it's interesting. Okay, so if we had Fumble, we had Ford. Is it Michael's last one?
My last choice
Okay.
is Inspector Clouseau. It is Peter
Sean.
Sellers as the bumbling French police officer, detective, who is just terrible at everything. He's so
Wow.
full of himself, but has just is so klutzy and clumsy and unobservant for being a detective, unobservant for being someone who's trying to solve and first, I don't know if he ever tries to solve murders, but the theft of the diamond and trying to capture the Pink Panther. And he just has this great arrogance to his klutziness and his clumsiness. He's this person that solves the case by accident, not by any sort of ingeniousness. And along the way, he hurts people and knocks people out windows and just goes through all just the machinations of like just being a person who is unobservant and knocks things down in spite of what his job is and what his life is. And I think that because he styles himself as this great detective, it really like plays off against his character and what they actually are. So there's this great, facade about him that he's such a klutz. He doesn't even know he's a klutz. He doesn't know that all the harm that he's causing and destroying things around him, to the point that even the villains are dumbfounded when they're caught. And,
Yeah, he's
they-
somebody. There's a trope of clumsy characters whose clumsiness work to their own benefit,
Yeah.
who kind of bumble their way into something, and then they get the credit for it because everyone else sees it as some sort of 3D chess sort of maneuver, and they're sort of cluelessly accepting the credit for it. And Clouseau certainly falls into that category.
Yeah, unlike Columbo, who was just playing he was lulling his suspects into a trap.
Yes, he truly was playing 3D chess versus Clouseau, who was barely playing checkers and somehow succeeded.
The wonderful aspect of that series and seeing people who befell his clumsiness and develop like an eye twitch. Clouseau.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Like his boss. I can't remember what the character's name was, but yeah much beleaguered.
Oh, fun. Okay, Richard, what's your final choice?
My final choice is Godzilla.
Inspired.
Because go back and watch those Godzilla films. Godzilla is falling down all the time. And of course, the consequence of Godzilla falling down is not just Godzilla fall down and boom. He's usually taking a couple of high-rise buildings out with him whenever he gets knocked down or falls down on his own.
How graceful is a thunder lizard supposed to be?
I don't know. I don't know how graceful he's supposed to be. I can tell you how graceful he's not. And that's very not. Apparently, if you go back and watch the original Godzilla movie, the Raymond Burr one from 1954, apparently there were a lot of problems with the stunt actors who were playing Godzilla because the suit had the toes that were spread apart too wide. And so it made it difficult to walk in. So they were literally just falling down all over the place. And they would just leave that in the movie. So
it's very much like Ed Wood. Just we got it. It's close enough. We got to leave it in. It's fine. It's okay. It's fine. He's fall down on some buildings, and these buildings were going to get stomped on anyway. That's okay. Let's move along.
Yeah, no matter how they get stomped on, the point is buildings are going to get stomped on.
Yeah.
Now, whether or not it's intentional or the stunt actor tripping and falling, and is maybe through editing we can kind of try to salvage it to some extent. Sure. But it's just, I wonder how much of that was just laziness, like they just didn't want to set the building back up again. They knew they'd have to spend an hour trying to get it all fixed up and looking nice so they could reshoot the scene. It's like, you know what? It's fine. It's Godzilla. He knocked shit down. It's fine. So yeah, last one's Godzilla.
And in a couple later movies, he does gain some sense of gracefulness when he's like doing that weird jumping dance move in the air that we see in the GIF. He's learned. He's developed. He went to took some classes.
Yeah, he did some ballet just to sort of, like you would hear about NFL players taking ballet classes to help them with their balance. Same thing with Godzilla. You should see the king of all monsters do a plie. It's impressive.
Well, when he battled Grand Jeté, that was.
Was Mechagodzilla programmed to be less clumsy?
I would think so. Yeah, I would imagine that Mechagodzilla would be, because of his artificial intelligence, would be programmed to have better balance.
Yeah. Well, this has been a fun topic. I want to thank the listeners and viewers who have been with us this whole episode. We appreciate it. And we would invite you to, in the comments, leave your suggestion for a klutz or shout out to the ones that you agreed with from Michael or Richard. Here, I'm going to blunder my way through this because I think they were all such great choices. The one thing I thought was interesting, I do still try to psychoanalyze Richard and Michael because that's just, I'm a judgy person. But one thing I thought was interesting, Richard did this too, but Michael, I think, chose mostly people who have a mixed Mr. or an inspector or something in their name. And I think that I think is really an interesting aspect of a low status klutz is really just kind of sad. A high status klutz, well, that's comedy because that's satire essentially because here's the mighty taking a fall.
Yeah.
So
My last choice was actually Inspector Godzilla from the Inspector Godzilla series back in the 70s. So
we need that. We need that. Inspector Godzilla.
Detective Godzilla, yes.
Detective Godzilla. Does he have a coke habit like
Where's
Holmes
where,
did? Or
where's the crossover where like somehow he has traveled back in time, or somewhat where Sherlock Holmes teams up, the greatest detective duo in the history of the world.
Well, wasn't that basically
Holmes and Godzilla?
the Godzilla cartoon was with Gadzuki? Weren't they basically running around solving crime?
Were they really?
I don't know. I never
Did
saw
they
it.
speak? Did they speak? Or was it just...
I love that. I love that is the perfect way to end a podcast.
Absolutely.
Didn't this thing happen that I have no idea? Really?
Yeah,
I don't know. I've never seen it. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Well,
Talk to you next time, folks.
Just accept it as something that may or may not have happened. You could literally have said anything.
Okay, let's see if I can activate this little sound effect. But let's go with Goofy, since you both chose it. Okay, let's go with Bill Irwin, since I love the guy. Let's go with Godzilla.
Great thing. Yeah.
Since it was a pretty inspired pick. And how about Inspector Clouseau? Because such great satire and awesomeness. And guys, it's so great to see you, my friends.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What a way to start the new year.
Absolutely.
Yes. Happy 2027. Are we
Yes.
coming to you from the future? Ooh, we'll never know.
This has been the Mount Rushmore of yeah. Did we do it? Did he freeze? Did Richard say?
You froze for a second.
I did.
You froze for a
shoot.
second.
Okay, I'm always Jeff.
I'm Richard.
I'm Michael. What a klutz.
What a klutz. All right.